Welcome back to Goosebump on the Midnight series, where the most terrifying haunted stories are told. Tonight, we will immerse ourselves in a chilling tale where familial bonds are betrayed, and dark magic reigns supreme. The Haunted's Melody. Tucked away at the end of a narrow alley, Master Rams lived a tranquil life, striving to bury the glorious yet painful past of a formidable magic practitioner. The haunting memory of his wife's death years ago had led him to self-imprisonment, swearing never to touch the spiritual world again. But fate would not leave him be. One day, a wealthy couple, Mr. Logan and Mrs. Daisy, sought him out, begging for his help. They spoke of the unjust death of their only daughter, Aya, and the terrifying ghostly phenomena tormenting their family. Aya's soul could not find peace, lingering in the mansion, spreading terror with her mournful cries and boundless resentment. The only conduit they brought was a beautiful silver music box, Aya's most cherished keepsake. The moment he touched it, Master Rams knew this was no ordinary haunting. A stream of extremely violent and dark resentment emanated from the box, signaling a dreadful secret being concealed. Reluctantly breaking his vow, Master Rams followed them to the old villa in Transylvania. There, he quickly discovered traces of dark magic, a malevolent soul-binding spell hidden right in Aya's room. He knew he had been deceived. This family didn't just want to summon their daughter's spirit, they were hiding a heinous crime. The first confrontation occurred that very night. The vengeful spirit of Aya, with terrifying power, attacked Master Rams, seeking to end his life. That spiritual battle allowed Master Rams to unveil the truth: Aya's parents had lied. Cornered, they confessed everything. Aya hadn't died in an accident. She had suffered from an incurable illness. Driven by blind greed and incited by someone calling himself Master Chris, they had agreed to perform a wicked ritual, 7 stars life extension and fate transfer. They had sacrificed their own daughter, transforming her soul into a vengeful spirit to gain fortune for their family. The story now became a direct battle between Master Rams and the insidious dark sorcerer Chris, who was manipulating everything from the shadows. Chris relentlessly tormented Master Rams mentally with illusions of his deceased wife, determined to destroy him. To find a way to break the spell, Master Rams had to resort to an ancient and perilous method, dream sight revelation, entering Aya's memories to witness the entire tragedy. On the final night, amidst a terrifying storm, the ultimate battle erupted. Master Rams had to set up the Breaking In Resentment Guidance Array, sacrificing his own life force as an offering, to break the demonic link and redirect all of Aya's resentment back to the mastermind. Would Master Rams succeed in freeing the wronged soul? What price would the wicked sorcerer and the inhumane parents have to pay? And what would be the cost for Master Rams in this battle of life and death? We invite you to listen to the full story to discover the conclusion. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, so you don't miss out on upcoming fascinating stories. Please leave your comments below with your thoughts after listening to the story. Master Rams' house was tucked away at the end of a narrow dirt alley, a world almost forgotten, completely separated from the hurried, bustling city that was expanding daily, swallowing up the last quiet spaces. It wasn't just a house, it was a living relic, an oasis of tranquility that life had inadvertently left behind. The yin-yang tiled roof, through countless seasons of rain and sun, was covered in a velvety green moss. The sturdy, dark ironwood pillars had darkened with time, bearing the marks of decades of exposure to wind and weather. The small courtyard paved with old bat trang tiles in front of the house always carried a complex scent, the pure aroma of dried herbs, the damp, earthy smell after a rain, and the invisible, ancient scent of something like the meditative breath of the land itself. The locals, from old to young, respectfully called him Master Rams. But that was more than 20 years ago. Now, no one saw him as a master anymore. He lived alone, reclusive and silent like a long shadow cast in the twilight. His only companions were his overgrown medicinal herb garden, a world of plant life, and yellowed Confucian scriptures whose paper was so brittle it seemed about to crumble. Master Ram's life flowed at a steady, slow pace, almost stagnant, like an old water wheel that only turned when the wind blew. Every early morning, when dew still clung to the leaves, he awoke not to the shrill sound of an alarm clock but to the chirping sparrows on the honeysuckle trellis outside his porch. He would slowly step out into the yard, take a deep breath of the fresh morning air, and then begin a few movements of health-preserving martial arts. His aging body, seemingly withered, held surprising flexibility. His movements were graceful, fluid, yet imbued with inner strength, blending harmoniously with the surrounding nature. After his exercises, he would begin tending to his herb garden. It was a sacred ritual. He meticulously pulled out each weed, cherished each new sprout, and watered each plant with clear, cool well water drawn from the earth. For him, every mugwort branch, every stalk of lemongrass, every perilla leaf was not just an inert plant. They carried the spirit of heaven and earth, the essence of medicine, capable of healing physical wounds, and sometimes, soothing invisible pains, the unhealing scars of the soul. But there was one pain, one wound in his heart, that no herb in his cherished garden could heal. It lay deep within his chest, and it was present in the most revered spot of his ancient three-compartment house. On the elaborately carved mahogany altar, beside the cold, silent bronze incense burner, was a memorial photograph. The photograph showed a very young woman with clear, bright eyes and a gentle, warm smile like March sunshine. That was Mrs. Nagini, his deceased wife. Every afternoon, as the sunset began to fall, painting a corner of the sky purple, Master Rams would personally light a stick of agarwood incense. The thin, pure white smoke would rise, swirling and clinging around the photograph as if wanting to hold on to something, then slowly dissipate into the silent space, carrying with it the unspoken sorrow, the remorse that he had buried for 20 long years. He never prayed, nor did he offer supplications. He just stood there, motionless, gazing deeply into the eyes in the photo, eyes that for more than 20 years had haunted him every restless night. People rumored that Master Rams retired due to old age and weakness, no longer possessing the clarity and health to continue the complex and dangerous profession of speaking with the dead. Only he knew that wasn't the truth. He had run away. He had run away from the very profession his ancestors had painstakingly passed down, run away from the mystical spiritual world, a world where he was once a master, but also a world full of deadly traps and dangers. And above all, he had run away from the horrifying memory of that fateful night. It was a night of torrential rain, with the wind howling like vengeful spirits. During a soul-summoning ritual, a ceremony in which he had been overly confident in his abilities and spiritual virtue, a fatal mistake occurred. A moment of carelessness, a flicker of arrogance, had made him pay too high a price. He had opened a door that he could not close. He had lost Mrs. Nagini forever, not due to human illness, but to an invisible force, a malevolent entity that he himself had inadvertently invited. Since that fateful day, he had sworn never to touch even a single spiritual artifact, never to recite a spell, never to allow his soul to come near the hair-thin line between the two realms of yin and yang again. He had confined himself to this solitude, in this house, as a form of unending penance. That tranquility, however, was shattered one melancholic autumn afternoon. The growl of a car engine from the beginning of the alley, a strange, out of place, and somewhat arrogant sound in this peaceful place. Master Rams, who was sitting cross-legged on the bamboo bed on the porch, his eyes half closed, enjoying the gentle autumn breeze, frowned slightly. His old eyes, usually calm, gleamed with a hint of vigilance. He looked towards the gate. A glossy black Mercedes, its long body like a giant whale, was slowly and laboriously squeezing into the narrow dirt alley, its wheels crushing the weeds growing by the roadside. The car stopped right in front of his house. The passenger door opened, and a man in a stylish black suit, probably the driver, hastily ran to open the back door. Two guests stepped into the yard. One was a man in his 60s, large and imposing, but his gait was heavy and weary. His face bore deep lines of hardship and worry, though his expensive designer clothes did not hide his elegance. Walking beside him was a woman, presumably his wife, her face meticulously made up, but unable to hide her swollen eyes from excessive crying and an appearance of extreme exhaustion. They didn't just bring the presence of two people. They brought an atmosphere entirely different from this place, the aura of money, of power, and of an extreme sorrow that neither money nor power could soothe. The man spoke first, his voice deep and somewhat pleading, mixed with apprehension. "Excuse our abrupt intrusion. May we ask, is this Master Ram's residence?" Master Rams did not stand up. He merely nodded slightly, an almost imperceptible nod. His eyes showed no emotion, looking directly at the uninvited guests. "I am Rams. But I have not been a master for a very long time." His voice was dry and distant. The woman seemed on the verge of tears. She stepped forward, her voice pleading and earnest. "Master Rams, we know you have retired for many years. But we are truly at our wits' end, with no other recourse. Please have mercy and help our family." "My family lacks nothing, nor is there anything urgent that needs saving," Master Rams replied, his voice still dry as stones. "And I am not capable of that. Please leave." He intended to turn away, ending this meaningless conversation. He no longer wanted to involve himself in worldly matters. But the man, Mr. Logan, spoke hastily, his voice breaking with pain. "It's our daughter. Little Aya. She just passed away, Master." The name Aya meant nothing to Master Rams, but the two words "just passed away" were like a small, sharp needle, pricking straight into his aging heart. It stirred the stagnant pool of memories he had painstakingly kept calm for the past 20 years. The old pain resurfaced, smoldering. He fell silent, his bony, veined hands subtly clenching. Seeing his silence, Mrs. Daisy, Mr. Logan's wife, seemed to grasp a lifeline. She recounted in choked, broken sobs. Aya was their only daughter, beautiful as a flower, intelligent and talented, the pride of their entire family. A month ago, The girls suddenly died in a traffic accident, leaving them at just 20 years old, the most beautiful age of life. An unjust, sudden death, without a single last word. Since then, their entire family had been plunged into mourning and sorrow. But the pain of losing their child was not the most horrible thing. Since the first week after she passed, Mrs. Daisy whispered, her eyes anxiously scanning Master Ram's courtyard as if fearing someone was eavesdropping from the shadows, strange things began to happen in the house. Things in her room moved by themselves, and the lights flickered on and off. Every night we heard her crying, her mournful, desolate calls of "Father, Mother" echoing through the hallways. We invited a few shamans, but no one could do anything. Some left in fear after performing a ritual, while others declared that her spirit was attached to the family and didn't want to transcend. Mr. Logan continued his wife's story, his voice full of despair and helplessness, but we know that's not it. It's not attachment. It's anger, it's resentment. We feel it very clearly, Master Rams. Her soul. It hasn't found peace. It's in great pain and resentment about something. We just want to know why. We want to say a final apology to her. Please, Master, help us. Summon her soul. Soul summoning. Those two words were like a lightning bolt striking Master Rams, shaking the inner world he had tried to wall off. Memories of that rainy night years ago flooded back, as clear as if they had happened yesterday. The acrid smell of incense, the chaotic, off-key chanting, the wind whistling through the cracks in the door like demonic wails, and Mrs. Nagini's final, painful, despairing scream. He felt his chest tighten, making it difficult to breathe. He stood up abruptly, the sudden movement startling the couple. His voice became sharper and colder than ever. No. I told you. I don't do those things anymore. Never. Please leave immediately. This place does not welcome such requests. He turned his back and walked into the house, intending to slam the heavy ironwood door shut, to shut off the painful past as well. But Mrs. Daisy collapsed to the cold ground, her cries erupting, desperate and mournful, "Master. Please, Master. If you don't help, our family will be destroyed. My child cannot rest in peace. Please, Master, consider it an act of charity, a blessing for an unjustly wronged soul." Master Ram stopped, his hand on the edge of the door. His hunched back trembled slightly. He didn't turn back, but the image of the elegant woman kneeling and begging outside superimposed another image in his mind, his own image, 20 years ago, kneeling just as desperately amidst a ruined ritual, calling his wife's name until his throat was hoarse, all in vain. Compassion, which he thought had hardened and died long ago, suddenly stung with pain. Mr. Logan stepped forward, placing a small wooden box wrapped in crimson brocade fabric on the doorstep. He carefully opened the box. Inside was a silver object, exquisitely crafted and beautiful. A music box. This was what little Aya cherished most, Mr. Logan said, his voice deep with emotion. It was her 18th birthday gift. We brought it here, with all our sincerity, hoping you would reconsider. We will pay any price. Master Rams glanced at the music box. Under the faint twilight, it shimmered with a cold, eerie light. The intricate patterns on the surface of the box seemed to be moving, like small snakes crawling. He hesitated for a second, then, as if compelled by some invisible force, he stepped forward and bent down. His thin, rough finger lightly touched the cool silver surface of the box. Instantly, a chilling electric current ran up his spine, shooting straight to his brain. For a fleeting moment, less than a blink of an eye, the scene before him blurred. Instead, another image appeared, horrifyingly sharp. A pitch-black room. A young girl with long, black hair cascading down, almost completely covering her face. She was huddled on the floor, and from beneath her hair, he could see one eye wide open, an eye filled with immense resentment and hatred, staring directly into him. The image vanished as quickly as it appeared. Master Ram started, recoiling his hand, staggering back a few steps, his breath becoming rapid and difficult. This feeling. It was too familiar. This was not just the energy of an ordinary wandering spirit. This was resentment. An extremely heavy, dark, and violent resentment. Mr. and Mrs. Logan did not notice the change in his expression. They only saw him standing still, staring at the music box. Mrs. Daisy was still sobbing, "Please, Master. Please reconsider." Master Ram slowly lifted his head. His eyes were no longer cold and distant. Instead, there was an indescribable complexity. There was the fear of the past, the professional curiosity of a shaman, and above all, an incessant torment. He looked at the wealthy but miserable couple before him, then glanced at his wife's memorial photo hanging in the house. If he refused, would the soul of that girl named Aya find peace? Or would it be forever trapped in anger and hatred, eventually becoming something even more terrifying, a malevolent spirit, causing further tragedies? A tragedy that he himself had experienced in the most painful way. A mournful sigh escaped his aging chest. Master Rams knew he could no longer run. His ancient vow, though heavy as 1,000 pounds, could not overcome the call of destiny, or rather, a debt of empathy he had taken upon himself. "All right," he said, his voice hoarse and weary. "But I have a condition. I must go to the place where the girl met her fate. Your house. I need to see what's truly happening there." Mr. and Mrs. Logan were overjoyed as if they had found gold. They profusely thanked him, hastily standing up and dusting off their clothes. Mr. Logan quickly took out a leather briefcase, intending to open it, but Master Rams raised a hand to stop him. "Money comes later. Saving a spirit, helping a person, that's what's important. Go prepare. In 3 days, at midnight, I will arrive." After the luxury car departed, returning the alley to its usual tranquility, Master Ram slowly walked back into his house. He didn't look at the silver music box lying on the doorstep. He went straight to the altar and lit another stick of incense for his wife. Looking at her smile in the photo, he whispered, his voice full of bitterness, "I'm sorry, my dear. I know I swore. But this time, I feel I must do it. Perhaps. This is my way of repaying the debt I caused you." The thin, silent smoke of the incense rose, like an acceptance, or perhaps a warning. That night, Master Rams couldn't sleep. He sat on the bamboo bed, beside him his dusty tools of the trade, carefully cleaned after 20 years, a string of ancient green copper coins, a white horsehair whisk, an old geomancy compass with a constantly trembling needle, and a few remaining yellow talismans with faded cinnabar ink. The night wind began to blow harder, bringing cold air and the rustling of leaves in the garden, a chilling sound. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a flute. A mournful, desolate flute melody, faintly echoing from somewhere far away, sometimes near, sometimes distant, as if teasing his hearing. Then he smelled a familiar scent. The intense, alluring scent of night-blooming jasmine. The flower that Mrs. Nagini used to love to plant in a corner of the courtyard. But in his garden now, there were only medicinal herbs, not a single flower. He stood up and walked out into the courtyard. The night was pitch black, without a single star. Nothing. Only thick darkness and the chirping of insects in the damp earth. He turned back into the house, intending to brew a pot of ginger tea to warm himself and calm his mind. Suddenly, a very soft clink sound came from the outer part of the house. Master Rams froze, his entire body tense as a bowstring. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head. His eyes widened, looking towards the silver music box he had brought in and placed on the wooden table. Under the flickering oil lamp, the box lid automatically opened. And then, in the breathtaking silence of the old house, a melody began to play. It wasn't a melodious, gentle tune. Instead, it was individual notes, disconnected, out of rhythm, jarring, as if played by an invisible hand trembling with anger and pain. That distorted, eerie melody repeated over and over, spiraling deep into the night, deep into Master Ram's mind. He knew now. Aya's spirit was no longer in that mansion. It had followed the music box. All the way here. The battle had begun, sooner than he anticipated. The next 3 days felt like 3 centuries. Master Rams barely slept. He spent most of his time meditating in the silent house, trying to keep his mind as calm as an autumn lake. But that lake was constantly rippled by invisible pebbles. The eerie melody from the music box no longer played, but its silence was now even more terrifying and oppressive. It lay there, on the table, a cold, inanimate silver object yet containing a storm of resentment and despair. He knew this silence was merely the demon's resting state before it attacked again, with greater ferocity. He had to use a Blessing 4 Nations talisman, one of the strongest remaining protective talismans, soaked with fresh blood from his index finger, and firmly affixed it to the lid of the box. This was only a temporary measure, like using a tattered mat to cover a bottomless well. It could only suppress the external physical manifestations, but it could not stop the cold, gloomy energy that continuously emanated from it, making the air in the house suffocating. Exactly 3 days later, at dusk, the glossy black Mercedes once again pulled up to the alley. Master Rams, with an old cloth bag slung over his shoulder, silently stepped out. The bag contained only a few simple brown robes, his carefully cleaned and consecrated ritual tools, and the music box wrapped tightly in many layers of cinnabar-soaked yellow cloth. He didn't look back at his house, which had sheltered him for decades. On this journey, he wasn't sure if he would ever return. The journey was longer than he thought. The car rolled out of the familiar alley, blending into the noisy city traffic, then sped along the highway straight towards the plateau. Master Ram sat silently in the back seat, his eyes half closed, but all his senses were wide open, vigilant. He felt the change in the air as the car began to climb the winding mountain passes. The air thinned, grew cooler, and began to carry the moisture of the mountains and the pungent smell of pine resin. Transylvania welcomed him with a dense fog, a characteristic blend of romance and eeriness of the city of 1,000 flowers. Fog hung everywhere, swallowing the old, silent pine forests on either side of the road, blurring the boundary between sky and earth, transforming the familiar landscape into a hazy, surreal realm. This fog, Master Nam thought, was just like the Long family's story, hiding some horrifying truth deep within. The car turned onto a solitary road, flanked by towering pine trees, silent and still in the fog. The gently sloping road led to a massive iron gate, intricately carved with European-style patterns but already beginning to rust from the mist and wind. Behind the gate stood an ancient French-style villa, towering on a small hill, completely isolated from the outside world. It appeared in the misty gloom like a giant monster in a nightmare-filled sleep. Its architecture was beautiful, with high arches, graceful balconies, and sturdy columns, but time and neglect had cast over it an undeniable sense of desolation and mourning. The gray stone walls were mottled with moss and long, black streaks of water. The dark stained glass windows were like soulless, empty eyes looking down at the vast garden, where weeds grew rampant, taller than knee-high. A few headless, broken-winged stone angel statues lay scattered on the decaying leaves, looking like victims of a massacre. As soon as he stepped out of the car, a cold, heavy sensation, even colder than the late autumn chill of Transylvania, enveloped Master Ram's energy. It was thick, lingering in every blade of grass, every stone, clinging to every wall of the villa. It was unlike the natural energy of a land with many graves, nor was it the energy of a freshly deceased spirit. This was a nurtured energy, accumulated over time, carrying a horrifying malevolence and decay. This house was not merely haunted, it was a cage, a prison holding something extremely dangerous. Mr. and Mrs. Logan stepped out of the car, looking even more haggard and drawn than 3 days before. It seemed that returning here made their inherent fear resurface even stronger, suffocating them. An old, gray-haired man in a gardener's brown robe hastily ran out to open the door. This was the butler, named Tin. He bowed to his employers, but when his eyes glimpsed Master Ram's, a poorly concealed look of fear flickered across his wrinkled face. "Welcome back, sir and madam," Mr. Tin said, his voice faint and trembling. "Hello. Hello, Master." Master Ram simply nodded in greeting. He didn't need magic to read the deception and terror in the butler's eyes. He knew something. All the servants who remained in this house knew. But they dared not speak. Stepping through the creaking, heavily ominous oak main door, Master Rams felt as if he had entered another world, a cold mausoleum. Inside, the villa was vast and terrifyingly silent. The silence here was not peace, but the silence of death, of waiting. Luxurious furnishings, from velvet-upholstered sofas to the colossal crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling, were all covered in a hazy layer of dust, evidence of neglect. The air was stagnant, carrying the musty smell of abandoned houses, mixed with a strange, sickly sweet, nauseating odor. Master Rams paused, his keen sense of smell immediately recognizing it. The smell of agarwood incense, but not the kind used by monks to purify space. This was the scent of an incense used in mystical rituals, dark magic, meant to stimulate the senses, open the doors of consciousness, and serve as a bridge to the underworld. Master Rams knew his battle had truly begun. His enemy was not just an angry, vengeful spirit, but also horrifying secrets hidden in every dark corner of this haunted villa. Master Rams did not ask for rest. After placing his old cloth bag on an armchair in the living room, the first thing he did was ask Mr. Logan to show him around the entire house. He needed to understand his battleground, feel every energy flow, and locate where the Yin energy accumulated most heavily. Mr. Logan, with a tired and resigned expression, dutifully complied. They passed through vast, cold, and empty rooms. The dining room with its long, valuable wooden table large enough for 20 people, but now covered only in dust and empty chairs. The library with bookshelves towering to the ceiling, their leather spines already decaying, emitting the smell of old, damp paper. Each room exuded a sense of faded grandeur, a terrifying emptiness, as if its soul had been drained. Master Rams didn't just see with his eyes. He sensed with all the faculties of a seasoned shaman. He closed his eyes, allowing his spiritual perception to expand. He felt the energy flow in the house, clogged and chaotic like a dammed river. There were unusually cold corners of walls, where the temperature dropped abruptly. There were long, dark corridors where sound seemed to be swallowed, without an echo. Finally, they stopped before a white wooden door at the end of the second-floor hallway, the only door that looked newer and cleaner than the others. "This is Aya's room," Mr. Logan said softly, his voice trembling with emotion and fear. Master Rams placed his hand on the cold brass doorknob. A familiar chill spread, but this time it was stronger, more intense, like touching an iceberg. He took a deep breath, then pushed the door open and stepped inside. Aya's room was like a world of its own, an island of youth and dreams amidst the grief and gloom of the entire villa. The walls were painted pale pink, unfinished books lay open on the desk, and a pristine white piano stood silently in the corner like a sleeping swan. Everything was meticulously arranged, impeccably clean, as if someone still came in to tidy up every day, trying to cling to the image of the deceased. But that effort only made the atmosphere more eerie and tragic. It was like a lavishly decorated tomb designed to conceal the truth of the death within. Master Rams slowly stepped inside. The Yin energy here was heaviest, so thick it was almost visible. It clung tightly to every object, every fiber of the bedsheets, every piano key, as if the girl's soul still lingered somewhere, observing him from the large mirror on the dressing table. He looked around. This room, like a crime scene, had been too thoroughly cleaned up by the owners to hide their guilt. But with the eye of an expert, Master Rams could still discern traces that ordinary people would never see. He didn't care about the external furnishings like beds, wardrobes, or tables. He walked straight to the corner of the room, where there was a large mahogany wardrobe. He gestured to Mr. Logan. "Please help me." Both men, one old and one middle-aged, worked together to push the heavy wardrobe aside. The wall behind it was revealed. Initially, it looked no different from the other walls. But when Master Rams took a small magnifying glass, whose lens had been soaked in mugwort leaf water and rooster blood for 7 days, from his cloth bag, he squinted and looked closely. Under the special lens, faint drawings invisible to the naked eye gradually appeared on the plaster wall. They were intricate, winding symbols, drawn with black ink mixed with something dark red like dried blood. They formed an unclosed circle, a strange array with characters he had never seen in any orthodox texts. These were characters of heterodox dark arts. "This is..." Mr. Logan exclaimed in horror, his face ashen. "Dark magic," Master Ram said, his voice deep and sharp as steel. "This is part of an array used to bind a soul, not to release it. Someone performed a ritual here. A very dangerous and wicked ritual." He knelt down, gently touching the wooden floor at the base of the wall. He felt an unusual coldness emanating from one plank. He tapped the plank lightly. The sound it made was hollower than the other planks. Without hesitation, he used his iron-hard fingernails to pry hard. The wooden plank lifted, revealing a small hollow carved underneath. In the hollow were a few half-burnt black candles, a clump of tangled women's hair, and some ash from the strange incense. The sickly sweet, nauseating smell he had detected when he first entered the house came from here. Now, everything was clear. This family had lied to him. They weren't merely trying to summon their daughter's soul out of grief. They were hiding a crime, some horrifying truth that had taken place right in this room, on this very wooden floor. Master Rams was not the first person invited here to solve a spiritual problem. He was called to clean up the aftermath for someone else, some dark sorcerer who had performed a failed ritual, or had intentionally left this deadly mess as part of a larger plan. "Mr. Logan," Master Ram stood up, turning to face the homeowner, his gaze as sharp as a dagger. "You owe me an explanation. Who did these things? And why?" Mr. Logan's face was as white as a sheet, cold sweat beading on his forehead. He stammered, speechless, his eyes darting around, full of horror and guilt. Master Rams no longer needed his answer. He understood. This case was no longer simply about helping a distressed family. It had become a direct confrontation with a demon created by boundless human greed and the intervention of dark magic. The danger had multiplied. He looked out the window. The fog seemed to have thickened, surrounding the villa like a prison, trapping everyone inside with their dreadful secrets. The first night in the villa passed in a suffocating silence. Master Rams refused the luxurious bedroom the hosts had prepared. Instead, he chose to stay in the living room, which was spacious and centrally located in the house, making it easier to observe and react. He didn't sleep, only sat cross-legged on a Persian rug on the floor, his eyes half closed, his mind perfectly still, listening for every slightest movement in the house. The silver music box was placed on the coffee table in front of him, the blood-soaked yellow talisman still resting silently on the lid, like a mute guard. Around midnight, as frost began to lay a thin white layer on the window panes, it began. First, the sound. The piano. It wasn't coming from the piano in Aya's room upstairs. The sound echoed from somewhere distant, illusory, sometimes present, sometimes not, like a fragment of memory carried by the wind from the past. Just a few isolated, melancholic, desolate notes, then silence. Then it echoed again, this time seeming a little closer, right outside the hallway. The piano had no melody. It was just random notes struck soullessly, yet containing a deep sorrow, an inescapable torment. Master Rams remained still. This was just the prelude, a cold greeting from the other side. A moment later, the piano music stopped completely. Instead, there was crying. The muffled sobs of a young girl, echoing from the wooden staircase leading upstairs. The crying was initially very soft, choked, as if trying to suppress pain. Gradually, it grew louder, becoming mournful, despairing. It moved. Master Rams could clearly hear the crying moving along the second-floor hallway, pausing for a moment before each room door, then continuing to shuffle along, as if a spirit was searching for something it had lost, or for someone. Then he heard whispering. Meaningless whispers, like the wind whistling through a crack in the door, yet with a human tone. They were everywhere, in his ears, behind his neck, from the dark corners of the large room. They called his name, a name he had long stopped using in the world of magic. Master Rams. What are you doing here? Go away. Get out. Master Rams opened his eyes. His pupils constricted to tiny points. The talisman on the music box began to tremble slightly, the blood-red cinnabar lines on it seemingly moving. The yin energy in the room became colder and more violent. He knew it was drawing near. It had recognized his presence and saw him as a threat. And then, he felt it. An invisible weight pressing down on him. It started from his legs, a numb, chilling sensation, then gradually spread up to his abdomen, to his chest. His chest felt as if an invisible boulder was pressing down, making it impossible for him to breathe. He tried to move, tried to chant, but his entire body was locked, no longer obeying his will. Sleep paralysis. A direct and brutal spiritual attack. The space around him began to warp. The luxurious living room with its expensive furnishings disappeared. Instead, he found himself in a pitch-black space, cold and damp, as if being buried alive underground. He couldn't see anything, but he felt a presence directly in front of him. A presence filled with hatred and malevolence. Give it back. A voice echoed in his mind, not through his ears. The voice of a young girl, yet sharp and malevolent as a blade. A face suddenly emerged from the darkness, right next to his. It was Aya. Her beautiful face from the family photos was now pale white, devoid of a single drop of blood. Her long, black hair hung loose, matted with streaks of dried blood and mud. But the most horrifying thing was her eyes. Wide, lifeless eyes, with no whites, only a solid black color, as deep as two abysses burying all hope and light. And from those eyes, two streams of blood tears flowed down her pale cheeks. Give it back to me. She shrieked again in his mind, a silent scream that shook his very soul. Give back what? Master Rams tried to respond with his thoughts, his breathing becoming increasingly difficult, feeling as if his lungs were about to burst. Aya's spirit did not reply. Instead, it raised an ice-cold hand, long, bony fingers with pitch-black nails, gripping his throat tightly. Master Rams felt the air being sucked from his lungs. His throat felt as if an iron band was tightening around it. His consciousness began to fade. This was not a mere scare. This was a fatal attack. It wanted to kill him. In that moment of life and death, as his mind was about to sink into endless darkness, the horrifying memory of Mrs. Nagini's death flooded back. He would not let that happen again. He would not die so helplessly and shamefully. He focused all his remaining consciousness, gathered it in his chest, and mentally chanted a Vajra body protection mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. Evil spirits, quickly retreat. A warm, hot energy suddenly flared up from within his body, spreading outwards. Aya's spirit shrieked piercingly, as if burned by fire, and its image vanished into the darkness like a wisp of smoke. Master Ram sprang up, coughing violently, drenched in sweat. The weight on him had disappeared. The living room had returned to normal, as silent as before. But the air was still thick with the smell of death and resentment. The talisman on the music box had burned to ash at some point, leaving only a black mark on the silver lid. He looked at his trembling hands, then raised a hand to his neck. The sleep paralysis just now wasn't an illusion. A bruise shaped like 5 fingers was slowly appearing on his neck. It had been strong enough to cause physical harm. And it had used his own fears and secrets to attack him. It knew he was a shaman. It knew he had weaknesses, inner demons. The next morning, when Mr. and Mrs. Logan crept downstairs and saw Master Rams with a horrifying bruise on his neck and a pale face, they were utterly terrified. But he said nothing about the attack during the night. Their fear at this point would not help, only complicate the situation further. After a night of physical and mental torment, Master Rams knew he could not wait any longer. The probing and investigation were enough. Now was the time for action. He had to confront the spirit directly.